everyone, it's Hailey, and today I'm going to be talking about the books that I'm hoping to read this winter. So I love doing these seasonal TBR videos because they're actually really helpful for me. My fall one was super helpful. I ended up reading, I think, about half of the books that were on it, which I'm really proud of. That's good for me for a TBR because generally I plan them and then my mood changes and I don't follow them, but I still like doing them. So I've got a big old stack of books here. I was mostly thinking this winter I want to read one, winter rereads, obviously. I mean, wow, what a weird concept. And then two, historical fictions. I really love reading historical fiction in winter, but I have gotten a lot better about not saving all of my historical fictions for winter and fall because I used to do that and it was a nightmare. But that being said, I do still have some really awesome ones here. And then I also have been really wanting to read fantasies. Fantasy and I have been in a complicated relationship for the past, I want to say like a year and a half, almost 2 years. I've just been struggling. So I would like to take this winter to try and rectify that relationship. Really work on it, put the time into it. Maybe we will go to counseling. That's always helpful. I want to fall in love with fantasy again. I just feel like it has been taking so much out of me since I wrote my fantasy novel. It hasn't been what I've been wanting to pick up, but I have so many that I'm interested in, so I want to try and fix that. Now, all of that being said, let's just get into the books that I'm hoping to read this winter. Now, fantasy is the biggest pile on this list, so I'm actually going to start off with the historical fictions, the first being The Passion of Dolssa by Julie Berry. I feel like I don't see this book on BookTube or the Bookdernet. Is that the word? I don't know. I'm hip. But I have seen some amazing reviews from the people who have read it. And I love books like that that are hidden gems that there aren't that many people talking about, but they are awesome. And it's definitely something that I want to get in on. This is actually set in 1241. I don't think I've read a book that is set that far in the past ever, but it is set in France right after the Crusades, and it follows a girl named Dolssa, and she has a healing power, and there is this guy who is hunting her because of that and wants her burned for being a heretic. She ends up crossing paths with this matchmaker who discovers her healing powers, and the two of them go on the run together away from this friar who wants to burn her. I find the description to be very vague, but I think this might be one that I want to go into and just see what I get with it, honestly. So I'm hoping I will like it as much as everyone else seems to. While I was talking about that book, I actually remembered that I have quite a few Katherine Longshore books on my TBR that I would definitely like to get to this winter. This is the only one that I can presently find. I think I have Brazen somewhere, actually. I thought I had Brazen and Tarnish, but I can't find anything on my shelves anymore. I don't know what's happening, but Gilt is the one that I have right now. So this is about Catherine Howard, I think. Oh, it is about Catherine Howard. It really does not tell you a lot on the back of this book, but these are about the Tudor era, and I think they all follow King Henry's wives, or at least people who are associated with him. I can't remember if Catherine Howard was his wife or not. I'm sure you're all gonna tell me, but I don't know that much about the Tudor era. It all confuses me. They had so many wives and they were all yeah, it's a lot, but I do like reading historical fictions about it. So I've wanted to read Katherine Longshore's for a very long time now, and I think, why not now? Next is The Fountains of Silence by Ruta Sepetys. I wish I had read this last year. I love Ruta Sepetys. She's one of my favorite authors of all time. She's written two of my favorite books of all time, and I even had an arc of this, but I never got the chance to get to it, which just makes me so sad. And I definitely need to prioritize it this season. This is a little bit different than any historical fiction I've read and anything by her. It is set in Spain following the Civil War, so Spain is under a fascist dictator, and it follows two characters. One is American and is with the wave of tourists that is coming and seeing kind of a false Spain, the front that they put up, and then it also follows a actual Spanish character, and he's trying to learn about the American character that is trying to learn about the country his mother was born in, and he crossed paths with this girl, and it's about their relationship and what Spain is going through at the time. I don't know a lot about this time period, so I'm interested in it, and I think if anyone is the person to tackle it, Ruta Sepetys is for sure, because she does such a great job with researching and telling very authentic stories. And finally, as far as historical fiction goes, is The Librarian of Auschwitz by Antonio Iturbe, translated by Lilith Thwaites. I have had this book for a couple of years now, and I have so wanted to read it, but I know that it's going to be a book that I'll have to be in the right mindset to read because it's going to be very heavy. It is actually based on a real-life Auschwitz prisoner, Dita Kraus, and it tells the story of her protecting these books that were snuck into the camp, and she essentially then becomes the Librarian of Auschwitz. So I think it's going to be a difficult read, but a very important one as well, and like I said, it's been a long time coming for me to read this, so I just really need to do it. Next, I have a couple of sequels. So first is The Crown's Fate by Evelyn Skye. I read The Crown's Game, it must have been like 3 years ago now. Wow, time flies. But it is a fantasy set in Russia, and the first book followed this sort of game of magic between these two characters. It was kind of like The Night Circus, but I liked it better than The Night Circus personally, and I just never got to the sequel. I've had it for quite a while now, I think, or maybe I got it last year. The point is, I have been meaning to get around to reading it, and that is the story of my life for like all the sequels on my TBR, so now is the time. Also, I feel like this is a good one for winter. I think I read the first one in winter, and just Russia, cold, you know, it makes sense. Next is The Reluctant Queen by Sarah Beth Durst. This is the second book of the Queens of Renthia series, so in each book you follow a different queen, which is really cool, definitely different, and it's actually an adult fantasy series, and I read The Queen of Blood so long ago, really enjoyed it, and just didn't end up continuing. What else is new? So I have this book and the final book of the series, so both of them need to get read this winter, honestly. So now let's dive into the pile of fantasy books that I have here to read this winter. So next is The Light Between Worlds by Laura E. Weymouth. This, you can't really read the synopsis without being reminded of Narnia. It's very reminiscent of that. You have characters who were in a bomb shelter in London in the 1940s one second, and then they find themselves in this fantasy world known as the Woodlands the next second. But this is after. So it's when they come back and how they deal with that and having this amazing and scary experience in a fantasy world and then getting back to their regular everyday lives. I started this at one point, and I think audiobook is the way I need to go because there are some passages from their time in the Woodlands, and those are all told in italics, and I find italics very hard to read. So since there is a bulk of the book that is styled like that, I think that the audiobook is going to work for me. But Narnia definitely makes me think of winter, so consequently this book makes me think of winter, and I think the cover doesn't help that. It just, everything is pointing to winter is the season to read this in. Next is Wicked Saints by Emily A. Duncan. This, as I mentioned last week, I'm reading for a video, but also someone commented saying it was great for winter. I think it was on my fall TBR because I was thinking gothic, that makes me think fall, but then someone was like, no, definitely a winter book, and I took that one person at their word, honestly. It does not take that much to change my opinion in some instances. Most of the time I'm stubborn, but that time I was like, oh, you say it's good for winter? Okay. This is set in a kingdom that is locked in this centuries-long war, and you have three characters. One is a girl who can speak to the gods, and then the other one is a prince in danger, and then a boy with a secret, and it is up to all of them to assassinate the king and end this war. So definitely a high stakes fantasy, and like I said, someone said it's wintry, so I'm believing them. I can just see all the comments now being like, that person hustled you, that is not a winter book. Oh well. Next is for sure a winter book, and that is Winterwood by Shea Earnshaw. Winter is literally in the title, so I know I'm not wrong about this one, but this is wintry witches, an interesting combination that I'm definitely intrigued by. So the woods surrounding this town are magical, and few people actually know that, and then this boy ends up going missing in a snowstorm, and he should be dead, but he's not, and the main character, Nora, she knows about the witches and the magic of the woods, and she ends up encountering this boy, and that is the premise. If you're confused, I'm also kind of confused by the synopsis, but I was like, winter and witches, it is the time to read it. Next is The Guinevere Deception by Kiersten White. I cannot explain why a King Arthur retelling seems like a wintry book for me. I think it's because it's kind of like the core of fantasy, I feel like. So I feel like it's going to be a very medieval traditional fantasy, and those are the kinds of things, like epic high fantasies, that's what I'm kind of gravitating towards right now in terms of winter reads. I just feel like I want like an epic big book that I can just sit there and read while it's snowing and I can't go outside, and I can just like devour it. But this isn't exactly like a big book, but I feel like it is going to give me what I am looking for, if that made any sense at all. Next is Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. This, on the other hand, is a pretty big fantasy book. It doesn't look that big, but if you look at the UK copy, it's definitely very big. And the fact that I haven't read this yet is ridiculous, but I also feel like the expectation is so high that I'm like, yikes, I don't know if I'm actually going to like it, but I really hope that I will because I want to be on this hype train. And I did love Skyward by Brandon Sanderson, and that was my first Brandon Sanderson book, so why won't I love this one? You know, so many people do, so hopefully I will agree with all of them. But I started reading this book years ago. It's like 4 or 5 years ago now. Oh my goodness, I can't get over how time is flying. But I actually started reading it on a plane when I was on my way to England, and then I was traveling and I just never picked it up again. But like, I really try and read all the hyped up books that everyone's talking about, and I can't believe I haven't read this one yet. Like, what? Why? Speaking of, I just remembered that Kingdom of Ash exists, the final book of the Throne of Glass series, and I haven't read that yet, so like, I need to get to that. And finally is Uprooted by Naomi Novik. I thought this was a retelling, but now I'm not so sure. Either way, it is once again a fantasy that has to deal with magical woods. I feel like that's been the story for so many of these books, but something about magical woods is perfect for fall, but also winter. I really can't explain how my brain works and how like certain things are associated with certain seasons, and I'm like, yes, that is the time for that. Like, it doesn't make any sense to anyone but me. Now, this is another book that I've heard a lot of good things about, so fingers crossed I will like it. So those are all of the books on my winter TBR. I'm going to be busy this winter, obviously, because I'm sure that I definitely know there are so many that I really want to get to that I didn't even include on this list. This is just like the tip of the iceberg for what I'm hoping to read this winter. And hopefully I will have a lot of reading time this winter, but like, who really knows? I'm filming this in November, so I have absolutely no clue. But please do let me know what kinds of books you love reading in winter. I don't know if you're a mood reader or you just read whatever, whenever. Either way, let me know what you are planning on reading. And as usual, if you have read any of these books, please let me know your thoughts on them. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, don't forget to click that subscribe button and then click that bell icon so you'll be notified whenever I post. I post new videos twice a week. And you can also follow me on all of my social media. All of my handles and links will be down below for you guys. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!